Let's talk a little bit of landscape design. I want to show you guys basically the design I worked on today for about three and a half hours. And I want to talk you through what I did. So anyways, here's the design. Um, I just do all my designs by hand. I'm not saying it's the best sales pitch, but generally my clients are pretty pre-qualified before I go meet them, so they already know my ability, and really they just need a communication tool, so that they know what they're getting. And I need a tool to give to my guys to tell them where everything goes. So more than anything, this is really a tool I use for my guys to manage the project. But in doing that, time and time again, it turned into basically doing these hand-drawn landscape designs. I found the cleaner I made them, the more complicated I could make them. And I'm almost to the point now where we probably got to start getting into digital design software. But I do offer that as an option, and most people would just rather see something like this and get the dang job done. It's already expensive enough, and they trust me. If my customers didn't trust me, that may not happen. But anyways, so at this house, if you guys followed my story, you actually saw me at this house. I posted multiple times on it. And basically at the front up here by the mailbox, they had a couple of blue Atlas cedars that were, kind of hiding the house. It was almost like a barrier to being able to see the house. So as you came up the road this way, and then you kind of come into this, there's a cul-de-sac right here that you kind of turn around in, right? And that just blocked the house. And so honestly, it was this big, huge bed, and it was kind of far out in the yard. It almost didn't even seem like it was part of the house, so it seemed kind of wasteful to me. So I went back and I basically redesigned that bed. But otherwise, the rest of this landscape layout was already there. The customer asked for a paver pathway up to the front door, and so that's essentially what that is. But when I designed this landscape, I started with a focal point. So you can see right there up here in the middle, I chose my focal point plant, and that's basically gonna be like my coolest plant in the whole design. Now, I will say it's probably gonna compete a little bit with this guy, but that's only for a couple weeks in the spring. And so I would call this more of a subfocal point, as is that's also gonna be a subfocal point. But basically when I'm designing landscapes, I'm starting with a focal point, then I'm moving out to my anchor plants, right? So I'm gonna anchor the house, I wanna frame the house, but I also want to anchor certain things. Like I anchored this wall in the garage, and I anchored this front door, so people kind of know what's going on. But I also, what I'm doing with this is I have this gold mops back here. So I've got this yellow, and then I have these Gerard's pink azaleas. So that's actually a cold hardy azalea that seems to do pretty well here. And we've combined this with some of the boulders. They've already got a brown red boulder here. So I'm gonna just bring in two more to kind of break things up a little bit. But the azaleas will give them an evergreen, so it's going to be green all year round, but it also gets covered in blooms in the spring. That pink's going to contrast really well with that yellow, so they get a good contrasting color. But if you come down, well, let's just go back over to the left. Over here, you've got the creeping phlox. That's going to give you a early spring bloom. I'm thinking I'm going to do like a dark pink. And then you've got the Shasta daisies. That's going to be like a summer bloom. That blooms most of the summer, and it's kind of like a white bloom with a little bit of yellow in it. So you're getting some good color over there, but it's kind of it's spaced out, so it doesn't all happen at once. And then you've got the firewitch dianthus. Firewitch dianthus is going to be a early spring bloomer. It's a ground cover, just like the creeping phlox, but it has a blue color to it. So it's going to add a nice blue hue to the landscape. Now, as well, I've got these pink drift roses here because, the Gerard's azaleas are going to bloom early, and then they're going to kind of fizzle out, and so are the firewitch dianthus. But those pink drift roses, those are going to bloom all summer long. So I love that, and that's going to keep color in this front landscape all year round. Then you come over to this Pocomoke crepe myrtle. Well, that Pocomoke is a fall bloomer, so that's going to carry them through the rest of the growing season, as is the Rosa Sharon. So, you'll have both of those blooming in the fall. And then when you come back to this side, I just kind of balanced out these Shasta daisies over here with these Shasta daisies here, and I balanced out these creeping phlox with these creeping phlox, and I matched up this DeGroot Spira arborvitae with this DeGroot Spira arborvitae. And the thing I like about DeGroot Spira arborvitae is that it is a dwarf variety of the emerald green, or the smaggard, some people will call it. And it's a little bit tighter, and it doesn't get as big. It's only going to probably get around I would say 2 to 3 feet wide and only probably 10 to 12 feet tall, maybe 15 if you really, have some good soil. And then I also like to use these Het Midget arborvitae. And so I used Het Midget arborvitae to be my consistent evergreen throughout the landscape. And so normally that would be like where I would do hedging, but I don't like using that technique anymore. It's kind of out of style. So people would rather have more spacious landscapes a lot of times, especially in just a modern front landscape. So we're going to switch out some old boxwoods that were hedged with some of these round dwarf arborvitae. So it's just a little bitty guy. It gets about 3 to 4 feet round at maturity. And I got 3 more of them over here. So I've got 7 total running in there, but it kind of just keeps them green throughout the landscape. Keeps everything, so you don't get to the winter and have nothing. And then of course, my anchors are all evergreen, so that'll hold place well. But a lot of what I got in the front is not. And so you got basically your azaleas and your boulders holding the space. You're going to have the shape of your weeping tree. That's going to hold a lot of space too. And then you'll have those firewitch dianthus are actually an evergreen, so they're going to hold that blue space. So actually you'll have a decent amount of color still in the front between the gold mops, the azaleas, and the firewitch dianthus. You got the Het Midgets and the other DeGroot spires. You're in pretty good shape up there. So then you come down, and he wanted an option to add a pathway to the front door. I don't do concrete, so I gave him a paver option, and I went ahead and threw some variegated liriope on there. That's going to add a little bit of yellow green and a nice purple bloom. This landscape is kind of a purple pink or blue pink, yellow pink kind of. I've got really everything kind of contrasting with pinks, right? So that plays in really well with what I've got, but I also left some space there where I could get, some lights on each side of the pathway, in the middle and on each end, which I also did set this up for landscape lighting. It's not in this drawing. What I do for landscape lighting is I'll pull this drawing, I'll scan it, I'll print it off, and then I just white out some of the stuff that's in the way to make space so that I can put in. I don't even white out everything, but I'll kind of just clean it up enough that you can see where the lights are, and that they stand out. And then I'll do a little lighting legend just to show the difference between my spotlights and my path lights or my can lights or whatever kind of lights I'm using. Maybe I got a step light, or there's a lot of different style of lights that we use in landscaping, but everything we use is low voltage. So but then you come down to this bed, and I basically did a focal point on this bed. Every bed I try to do some kind of focal point if I can. And so this bed has the Jane Saucer Magnolia, which is that pink tulip looking tree in the spring that blooms out, really pretty, but it's more shrubby. So it's kind of a good fit for out there. And then I surrounded it with some Gulfstream Nandinas. That's going to be like a little bit green in the spring, but through the fall and winter, it'll kind of turn to that reddish color, get a little bit fiery orange. It'll just add a little something, and it's also evergreen, so it holds that space, because otherwise it's going to be a pretty bare space. And then you got Easter lilies, which is just the jonquil daffodils. It's like a really early bloomer. And so the Jane Saucer Magnolia and the Easter lilies actually bloom at the same time. So you're going to get a contrast in color and bloom. Having contrasting colors is cool, but if they don't bloom at the same time, it doesn't really mean anything. So that's what's going on up there. And then down here, I really downsized this. He already had a bunch of daylilies in there. I can't tell if they're Stellas or days. Honestly, they're just in the starting, they're just starting to sprout. So I just put them as lilies. It doesn't really matter. Either will work. And I kind of set this up to have 2 lights just right in between each little triangle of lilies, 2 little path lights. But and then up here, I set them up with 2 spotlights for the magnolia and 2 path lights on each end over by the Easter lilies. But then down here, I kind of, lilies are typically going to be orange or yellow. So I'm kind of counting on having some orange or yellow ones in there that we can use. And then I just put a pink double knockout rose back there. So again, kind of hitting that pink and yellow, and then contrasting it, or just mixing it up with that blue. And then of course you got to have your green in there. So this is just a really colorful landscape. It's going to be blooming all year long. And I'm pretty happy with how it turned out all in all. But this is what I do. So when you guys are asking, like, what do you do? I don't ever see you out there doing any work. Well, this is what I do. So, and that's my business card, which I will tell you, that is not my phone number. That is the office number. I don't give out my cell phone number, because if I did, I would never be able to get these designs done, because it takes 100% of my focus to be able to sit here and think all of this through so that you get a design that comes out looking like this thing, which this is a really well balanced design, I think. And I'm pretty happy with the way that it came out. I hope the customer likes it, because I would love to show you guys the final product when we get to install it. Even if we don't get to do it all, it'd be nice if we could do some of it. I would hope that maybe over the course of a couple of years, we get to do it all for them. But you never know, So when you wonder why I say I'm going to charge you for a bid. It's because I plan on going out and doing this kind of stuff on probably like 90% of my bids. Occasionally somebody has me come out and do a bush trimming estimate. We're going to eventually switch that over to our routed services and actually start doing bush trimming for free, probably, as far as the estimates go. But currently that's not how our system is set up. And so it gets tied in with this type of work. And it just is a victim of circumstances, I guess, for now. I'm not too worried about the bush trimming jobs as far as the income goes. We do just fine with income. I really just enjoy doing the landscape designs, and I want to be compensated for my time so that I don't have to rush through them and do a poor job on them. I'd like to have, I'm not looking to get rich off them, but I'd like to at least get the gas money and the expenses paid for, even if my time isn't compensated, so that I can kind of do these and do a good job for people. But hey, that's how I do it, TikTok.